What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, I'm getting as fed up as y'all are. Steven is still out. He apparently this week has lost his voice, but we've still got a breakdown and predictions to give y'all for UFC 320. We're going to get into the main event, co-main event, and the feature bout. Basically a breakdown and prediction of them all. But Nick, let's get started.
Let's do it. So main event, Magomed Ankalaev is going to defend his belt against Alex Pereira. Now, this is a rematch, and a lot of people aren't all that thrilled for it. Remember the first time this came around, everybody was very excited, and it felt like Magomed had been long deserving of a title shot. He goes and plays spoiler, takes the belt from Pereira, and everybody says, okay, well, we found the big chink in Pereira's armor. I think Magomed's got the answers, and I don't think Pereira can solve them. Well, the UFC realizes how important of a fighter Poatan is on the roster, and he's done a lot of work for the UFC in a short amount of time. So I'm for them giving him this rematch, but I'm kind of the same level of agreement that he is going to have a hard time if he doesn't change a few drastic things about his game plan on beating Ankalaev. I don't see, if he comes in with the same style and the same game plan using the same weapons, that he will have any more success against Ankalaev. But Ankalaev knows exactly where he can control the fight. And the biggest thing is he was 0 for 12 on takedowns against Pereira, which is big. And that was a big feather in the cap for Pereira. But the issue is Ankalaev, even through those missed takedown attempts, shows us, okay, maybe I can't get this guy down, but I can still control the fight on the feet. And that's exactly what he did. For a striker like Pereira to be controlled on the feet and then most of his weapons taken away, I mean, it felt later in the fight like he was just waiting around for a left hook, the perfect opportunity, which you can't find on a guy like Ankalaev. He's too good at getting in and out of range. So Pereira was kind of waiting for that. And then the calf kicks and the leg kicks were impressive. He did do some damage there. But again, I don't think he was mixing up the ranges of his kicks and the level of his kicks. I think he should have gone a little bit more with the head kicks because, again, Magomed, even though he comes from Dagestan and he's got great grappling, he's not a grappling forward fighter. He's a striker first and knows how to grapple well. When you're fighting a guy like Pereira, who is a world-class striker, it makes sense to try to take him down. But Ankalaev's confidence must have shot through the roof when he was 0 for 12 on takedowns, which doesn't feel like a great stat, but at the same time controlled 25 minutes against a high-level striker on the feet. So I feel like Magomed probably has more confidence. And then the other side of it that's kind of weird to me is it feels like Alex Pereira is playing like the bad guy, the boogeyman in this situation, saying things like Ankalaev is afraid of me. They've had this altercation now at the UFC PI, which to me felt a little flat. And I feel like if Dana White knew about it, he'd probably be pretty upset that they're like leaking out this footage, but also these two guys are supposed to kill each other next week in the cage. And they're sitting in the lobby perfectly fine having a Google Translate argument back and forth between 3 or 4 other people and a couple of phones all together. It was a bit of a mess, and I don't think it delivered the way they thought maybe it would. But it sort of makes me feel like Pereira's coming in with this chip on his shoulder, like, oh, this guy's a bad champion. He didn't even actually really beat me. Now, I didn't see it that way. I thought Ankalaev clearly won the fight. But a couple judges had a couple of rounds for Pereira. So it was closer on paper than people realize. And I think that if Pereira comes in with this chip on his shoulder and he's acting this way leading up to the fight, that makes me believe he's going to come in much more aggressive, looking for ways to, obviously he knows he can defend the takedown, so looking for ways to close distance and do a lot of damage with his strikes, primarily with his hands. But again, if he doesn't have a wide arsenal of weapons and he doesn't throw a lot of variety at Magomed, I have a feeling we're going to see the exact same fight take place again, probably for another 25 minutes.
So I don't really have much more to add on to what you just did. The main point is Pereira's got to bring more pressure. He's got to be on the offensive. You can't wait around for those shots. You got to go get those shots, I guess, would be a better way to do it this time around.
Well, and he should have more confidence, right? Because he was 12 for 12 on takedown attempts. He didn't let Ankalaev take him down even once. So that would tell you, all right, I'm safe to come inside. I know how to defend the takedown on this guy. I know that he can't get me down to the ground that easily. So if he can go out there and give that type of pressure and walk in like a guy who knows he's not worried about a takedown, that could be very disruptive for Ankalaev, who is always a pressure fighter, loves to control the fight at a long boxing range. He'll kick a little bit for the most part, though. He's controlling the center of the octagon, beating you up with long, straight punches, And then, for the most part, since he's a southpaw fighter, it's that open stance battle that we see because there's so many orthodox fighters. But at times he will switch stances. I don't see him switching stances a whole lot against Pereira because I think Pereira has more experience against the right-handed fighters, and he probably just has more go-to moves in that look. But if you stay in your southpaw stance, which I believe Ankalaev will do, that changes the fight drastically, and it takes away some of Pereira's best weapons. That lead left hook now isn't nearly as significant. It can be. If you set it up right, it can be. But for the most part, everybody can block fairly well with that lead hand if they're a southpaw. So I'm not sure exactly how Pereira changes his game plan because we know exactly who he is as a fighter.
Exactly.
But if he comes in with more pressure, more confidence, and then decides to throw a more wide variety, I think he can have more success.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's not what people are coming for. They're coming for Steven's prediction, but they're getting mine this week.
Let's hear it.
My prediction is, I'm going to play it safe, Ankalaev decision. Yeah. That's most likely what will happen.
Yeah.
I do see, though, that Ankalaev could get a TKO later in the fight, you know? We've seen Pereira get knocked out in the UFC, and so that's kind of my take on it. What's your final prediction?
So you got Magomed Ankalaev, unanimous decision?
Yeah, I'll stay with that, but I also want some credit if it's a late TKO.
Okay, yeah. So see, I see it the same way. I'm going to go Magomed Ankalaev, unanimous decision. I think he does it using his range. I think the fight will look similar to what we saw in the first match. I think Pereira will bring a little bit more pressure early on, but if he's met with a lot of obstacles and difficulty trying to get inside and find his big shots, he might revert back to the ways of his old fighting and just look for that power hook. And obviously it's worked out for him in many cases and in many fights. But I don't see it having the same success on Ankalaev. I think you really got to get creative if you're going to beat a guy like Ank. Think about his only loss in his career, Paul Craig's heel hook, right? Yeah. So with 1 second left. So it's got to be something crazy. It's got to be something out of the ordinary to get Magomed out there. I don't see Magomed sitting in the pocket long enough for Pereira to land a big shot or land a barrage of punches that would knock him out. We just don't see Dagestani fighters engage in that sort of fight all that much, which makes me feel like even if he does get cracked, he's either going to evade or he's going to look to be even more tenacious with his takedowns. And in this case, I have to assume Pereira will be successful taking with the takedown defense, but that doesn't mean Ankalaev isn't going to try for them again. So I think we might see that, and I'm going to go Magomed Ankalaev, unanimous decision once again. I think we see another 25 minutes, but Alex Pereira, whether he wins this fight or loses this fight, is moving up to heavyweight. I think there's something big for him. Potentially, there's something going on. Maybe who knows? Maybe they'll even start a 225 division just so they can have Chama on the White House. At this point, we don't know what direction, but Dana's trying to blow our minds one way or another. So I'm keeping all options open, but I do think this is the last time we see Alex Pereira at light heavyweight.
Word. And I think the casual might have to correct you there, or I'm going to show that I'm even more of a casual than I thought. I believe Paul Craig was a choke.
Was it a choke?
I think so.
I can't remember. I think it was like 1 second left in the fight.
Yeah. It was a late one, I believe, but I believe that was.
Well, if this gets clipped into a short, then we'll know for sure because it'll come up right about here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But let's move on to the co-main. Merab and Corey Sandhagen.
All right,
what are your initial takes on that? I'll pass it to you first so I can steal some of your notes.
Yeah, there you go. So I love this fight, and Merab Dvalishvili has shown us that he's the most dominant champion the bantamweight division's ever seen, and he's beaten a wide variety of great fighters with a varying skill set. So for me, Corey Sandhagen, yes, he's a little bit different than any of the guys that Merab has fought before, but we can't say he hasn't seen anybody quite like Corey. And we also know that Merab is great training partners with Aljamain Sterling, best friends, and Aljamain had a pretty easy win over Corey Sandhagen. So I have a feeling they understand where his weaknesses truly are, and they can dissect that on a UFC champion level. Two champions speaking to each other is a whole different ball game, right? When they're trying to break down a fight. So I think that's a very good aspect in Merab's camp, that he has a teammate that close to him that has a win over this guy. So Corey's got to come out there. And look, I'm not the first to say this, and I'm not going to be the last. Corey needs to hit him with something that he cannot see coming. And if there's anybody that can do that, it's Corey Sandhagen. Umar Nurmagomedov gave Merab a very tough fight. and his grappling is in my opinion better than Corey Sandhagen's, but his striking isn't quite as unpredictable.
Yeah.
And Merab, he's got tendencies of a wrestler, which means he likes to change levels and get inside. And the biggest issue for me would be that jump knee that Corey Sandhagen likes to throw.
Yeah.
That could be a big problem for Merab. And then the other aspects are just if he's able to find some sort of spinning attack off a cool angle. Corey's very good at setting traps for his opponents and then making them fall right into them.
Yeah.
The difference is he's pretty devastating when he does line something up. So if he can line Merab up, I think he can crack him, but I don't know if he can knock Merab out, right? It's just one thing to hit somebody flush with a knee, but if you do that and they still get the takedown or they still walk through it, now you got to go, okay, well, he just ate the biggest shot that I've got with the biggest weapon. Now what do I do? And now he's on top of me.
Yeah.
But I do think the fact that it's 5 rounds and Corey's going to have the opportunity to get up at the end of every round is going to help him, but that also tells me he's probably got 5 legit chances to throw something crazy and hit Merab and make it count. If he does that and cracks him, maybe he can put on a barrage of punches and win a finish. But I don't see Corey Sandhagen getting his hand raised if this fight goes to decision. And unfortunately for him, Merab is the king at 25 minutes. Merab has only been the champion for a few fights. But if you look at his average fight time, it's over 16 minutes. So that means he's always in long fights, and now he's accustomed to 25 minutes. Corey Sandhagen has done 25-minute fights, but he hasn't amassed a record that where his average fight time is longer than the average fight time of a UFC event. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think Merab will have the experience going into those championship rounds, and that's where he thrives. So Corey Sandhagen really needs to do that damage early if he wants to get his hand raised, because I don't see him winning this fight via decision. So he's got to do enough damage early to get Merab out of there.
Yeah. Just to recap, basically, Corey's chances are with the dynamic striking and with the scramble ability.
Yes.
The one thing that kind of works in his favor is the fact that Merab is not a submission guy.
Yeah.
He's going to try to dominate you on the ground, which leaves room, I guess, for Corey to, make some space and get himself back to his feet.
Right.
But an interesting thing that you told me, because you keep up with this a little bit more than I do, is that Merab's trying to get a win on the feet.
Yes.
So for that reason, I'm still sticking. If you guys watched last week, you heard my prediction about Corey.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Corey. I think if he does try that, it's not going to work out how he wants it to. And I think it's got to be a TKO. I don't think even one of those big knees is going to get Merab out of there.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Sandhagen.
Well, and that changes things with Merab saying he's going to come out with a different game plan. He's going to win this fight on the feet and try to do it via striking and even look for a finish.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me, and I think that it's a little bit of, what do they call it, posturing?
Yeah.
I think that Merab might even commit to that early on. But if it's not going his way, he will revert back to what has worked for him time and time and time again.
Exactly.
Which is pressure, grappling, top control, dominance, all of that. The things that we know Merab for, the reason he has got the name The Machine, all of those things will come into factor. But if he goes out there and just tries to strike with a guy like Corey Sandhagen, he could wind up low on the scorecards, which would lead him to being more tenacious trying to find these takedowns, being more gung-ho at trying to control the fight and now steal rounds back, which would open him up to these bigger shots from Corey Sandhagen. So I believe that if Merab is telling the truth, Corey's chances go up significantly. And if Merab is just posturing a little bit, then we'll see him try to strike a little bit just to see what Corey does, make Corey feel comfortable on the feet before he starts to take him down. All that to be said, Merab Dvalishvili does get this fight won, unanimous decision, and still. At that point, I don't know what he'll do next. I don't see anybody clearly at 35 that will give him a lot of trouble. But there's potential at 145. I wouldn't mind seeing Merab go for champ if he gets his hand raised against Corey Sandhagen, because he's beat everybody 135 has to offer of all different skill sets.
Yeah. I hate to get off topic, but just saying that 145, do you think he has a chance against Volkanovski?
Yeah, at this stage in Volk's career, and with how Merab is still training like a beast, he doesn't take days off. He's still training like he's an undercard fighter, like a prelim fighter.
Yeah.
So I think there is a legit chance, but Volkanovski is still that dude, right?
Yeah,
We can't forget who Volk is, but size and body stature and everything does play a role. And if their body types are kind of similar, the weight really won't matter that much, and then the reach and everything is kind of even.
Okay.
So I think it would be an interesting fight, but of course he has to get through Corey Sandhagen first, and I'm excited for that one.
Nice. Well, yeah, let's get into the feature bout.
Yeah.
I'm going to definitely be trying to steal some of your points on this because I'm
Let's
a little
go.
lost on this one. As y'all know, I'm a casual. I try to put that out there.
He claims that, but he actually knows a thing or two.
It's a safety net. If I get something wrong, I say, oh, well, I'm just the casual.
That's right.
But yeah, so Yuri versus Khalil Rountree.
Yeah.
Your breakdown and prediction on that?
Great fight. I'm excited for this one, and for a couple of reasons. So at first glance, you would say this is for sure going to be whoever wins gets the next fight against Ankalaev or Alex winner. Unless, of course, they go trilogy, but I don't think that they're really going to look for that.
Yeah.
Again, I think Alex is moving up to heavyweight off a win or a loss here. The only other caveat is Carlos Ulberg just fought last night and had a very impressive finish over Dominic Reyes. Now, Dominic isn't quite like getting a win over Khalil Rountree or Yuri, but it's still very impressive. His win streak is very impressive. His record looks good.
Yeah.
He looks like $1 million. So I think there's definitely some star potential to Carlos Ulberg. And unless Yuri or Khalil Rountree, both of which have been in title fights or even had a title, if neither of them go out there and do what Ulberg did or more impressive, I believe Ulberg will take that next title shot. If you go with my prediction, it's going to be Ankalaev who wins. So the next title fight you see is Ulberg versus Ankalaev. I'm not mad at that at all. I think Ulberg is an interesting striker. I think he's got a really good case to be, just fresh blood, new parity in the 205 division. We kind of need that. And I wouldn't mind seeing him actually get into the cage. After last night, he said, I want to fly to Vegas. I'm down to be the alternate. I'll go weigh in. But I also want to trip because I need to be in the arena watching those two guys fight for the title live. Now I think he needs to go with the baddie job. Or Joe Rogan. I guess Joe Rogan is really the one who did that. But Joe Rogan said Patty the baddie, basically get up in this octagon. Essentially, they made a fight. It was free promo. It was a great call out. We haven't seen that fight get made yet, but I have a feeling if Carlos Ulberg comes out and gets in that cage, whether Joe Rogan invites him or somehow he gets his way in there, and faces off with whoever has the belt at the end of the night, he will jump the line over whoever wins, Yuri or Khalil. And I believe the UFC wants to go in that direction just because we need some new faces. We need some new blood up at the top of 205.
Yeah. And my favorite thing about that Joe Rogan making that Paddy Ilya fight is if you hear Ilya talking before that, he's saying, there's a guy who refuses to fight me. He says he's got a back problem. Yeah. And Joe goes, you're talking about Paddy Pimblett. It's like, nope, I'm talking about Arman Sarukian.
As confidently as he could have said it. He's like, I know who you're talking about. You're talking about Paddy the Baddie.
Exactly,
like, Nope. But either way, Joe did a great job at facilitating some interesting spectacle. And I think that Carlos Ulberg should see exactly what happened. And I was saying this last night. He obviously he deserves it. But he won his fight and very impressively, took no damage. And then he said, I want to go to Vegas next week. The UFC is going to make that happen. Now, they might not fly him first class, but he's going to get at the very least, a coach ticket from Perth, Australia, all the way to Vegas. He's going to be put up in a nice hotel. He's going to get a front row seat to the UFC. He's going to get a flight back home, all of that sort of stuff. That's going to be a $50,000 vacation completely paid for. And all he had to do was go knock out Dominic Reyes in the first round. So I guess it was well worth it. But it's very interesting to me. I think the UFC likes the fact that he's willing to jump right back in, go cut weight again only a week later, and throw himself in as an alternate. Maybe even get himself a little payday. But yeah, I don't think Ank or Alex are gonna back out of this fight. So I believe Carlos will go out there just for a vacation. But I really do think it's important for him to get in that octagon when the opportunity arises at the end of the night.
And one more thing, sorry guys, about the Ulberg thing. It's almost like he was on a game show last night. It's like, you won. Your prize is, you get a free trip to Las Vegas. You get to go watch UFC 320 for free. You get 4 nights stay at the Luxor or whatever they say on the game shows. But yeah, just to wrap this up, your official pick or predictions for Yuri versus Rountree.
This one's tougher for me, and I've got decisions for the main and co-main, but this fight is not going to decision. It's a 3-round fight, so both men are going to have to get after it pretty quickly. They're also both pretty durable. I think that Yuri Procházka, even though his hands are down, he's a hard guy to deal with because when you come to enter in with traditional striking, traditional Muay Thai like Khalil does, a guy who's unorthodox like that can be very disruptive with how you your rhythm, with how you stand, with how you walk in, with your cadence. So if Yuri's able to do that, it can be a tough night for Khalil. Yeah. But sometimes we see those strict Muay Thai fighters who are really good at keeping range end up giving a lot of trouble to the guy who is heavier in the legs, bends his legs a bit more, and is more stationary, looking for heavier shots. Yuri can win this fight off one shot. Khalil can win this fight off of a barrage of shots. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a finish, but I'm going to lean towards Yuri Procházka to win this fight. Round 2 or 3, he's going to get a TKO. Probably a fight of the night, probably a performance of the night. But Khalil Rountree is going to be a dog. I think both men are going to leave having to go get medical attention, and that's going to be the perfect opportunity for Carlos Ulberg to slide right into the octagon without worrying about any other number 1 contenders trying to get in there. Yeah.
I think I'm going to steal that prediction as well and go Yuri round 3. And if it's not that, it's a decision. Yeah. And then I really don't know decision-wise because it's only 3 rounds. You got to, win 2 of them. So maybe Khalil can. But there's something telling me Yuri's going to get that 3rd round knockout or TKO. Yeah. And it's going to start with one of those crazy, or not start, he's going to get him backed up and then throw one of those crazy spinning elbows or something like he did against Dominic Reyes. Or just something unorthodox that... Just like you said, that Muay Thai style is very proper, and something like that could catch him. That's my take. Yeah.
Well, it's a great pick, and Khalil is very good at that. But remember, Khalil also does like to throw caution to the wind at times, and people say it looks like you owe him money. Exactly. He fights people like they owe him money, right? So I'm interested to see how the fight turns when that side of Khalil comes out, because he can be a very polished stand-up striker, but at times he can get into wars. Yeah. And he usually gets the better end of that. But Yuri also gets the better end of a lot of wars that he gets into. And it's always in the scramble, it's in the mix, it's in the wild stuff. He's spinning, he's off balance, but something's landing that's devastating. Same can be said for Khalil. So I think this is a great fight that the UFC matchmakers put together. But I do have to go with the former champion, the guy with a little more experience at the top of the 205 division. I'm going Yuri Procházka to get it done. TKO round 3.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up on them, I can tell you both of them hope Ankalaev wins, because neither one of them wants to get back into the cage with Pereira, right? Especially Yuri. Yeah. You've been in there twice and been knocked out both times. So, yeah, they're definitely hoping Ankalaev gets that one.
Yeah, and last thing on Ulberg, I guess he probably wants Ank to win as well, because if Alex wins, it's either trilogy with Ank or, maybe they try to do something else, or maybe Alex moves up and then there's a vacant belt for him. I don't know, but I have a feeling Ankalaev wins opens up more windows for Carlos Ulberg and the guys at the top of the division.
Yeah, Ulberg's next fight is entertaining any way you slice it, because if Pereira wins, I think they will do the rematch, even though I don't think people are interested in it. Yeah. But that means his next fight would be Yuri or Rountree, which would be phenomenal either way.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And at some point, Drickus needs to get himself up to 205, but that's for another conversation.
Cool. Well, is that everything?
Leave it there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate y'all. We'll see you in the next one.
See you later.